Claws Out podcast. This is a Tiger Tale when we look back on past players or past games. I'm joined by Rob Bechara. We're going to be talking about the 2005 preliminary final, Rob. Obviously, the West Tigers, a great night for them, 20 points to 12 victory over the Dragons. What were your expectations going into that game?
I was hoping we were going to win. It was going to be a big challenge. We were playing against St George, who, were meant to be the team to beat that year, them and Parramatta. So reaching the preliminary final already was a dream. Just having won a couple of finals and actually made the finals, that was great. But yeah, that day and the whole lead up, the week I had with my friends, the texting, the psyching up, we were ready to die.
Obviously a thumping win over the Cowboys in week one. I think we beat the Broncos 34-6, but the Dragons were the big dogs. They had the week off. I remember there was a lot of headlines at the time that the Tigers fans weren't going to get any tickets for the game.
That's right. We were meant to be outnumbered. Tickets were really hard to get. I know I went through a hard time getting tickets, but I ended up getting tickets, quite good tickets, by the way, in the corner post where Halatau scores late in the game, up in the upper part of the grandstand. Look, the atmosphere that night was just second to none, mate. I mentioned it on one of our collaboration podcasts that when the boys came out to warm up, I've never heard anything like that in an NRL game. I think I might have heard that in Australia, Uruguay in 2005 when they were qualifying at Accor, but I've never heard a roar like that in my life.
I was there that night, and nothing still has topped that in terms of atmosphere. Like, I got there about 5 minutes before the kickoff, and the Dragons were actually running onto the field, and all the smoke was up, and I was surprised that, I was in a predominantly Tiger section, but they were getting booed onto the field. I reckon it was pretty close to a 50-50 split of fans that night.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been an atmosphere like that at a game. I'm not being biased. Even, people that don't go for either team and people that commented to me afterwards, after the game, they said, wow, even watching it on TV, you could hear the atmosphere. It was just something special. And look, yeah, the Tigers fans, they'd been hungry. We hadn't made a finals or anything, and we were one step away from a grand final, and everyone came out of the woodwork, and, yeah, we made some noise.
I remember Tim Sheen saying they didn't do it, but he was thinking about trying a tactic from the kickoff, whereas if St George kicked off, he was going to get Pat Richards to kick the ball straight back to him, something to put them off their game. But certainly what did put them off their game was a try to Benji Marshall in the second or third minute off a scrum. The crowd absolutely erupted.
Yeah, the crowd went mad. It was as far away as it could be from me. But yeah, Benji got the ball and they'd created the overlap from the scrum, I think, with a pass from Hodjo. And Benji just kept holding it up and drawing in Bess, and Bess ended up going out to the winger, and Benji took a beeline straight to the try line and scored and threw the ball up in the air. And then, yeah, I think we needed to get on top early there, Eddie. We had to score first, and that noise that came up, I think we rattled everyone. We rattled the team, we rattled the crowd. We were there to play.
Yeah, I think it was Best and Nguama on sort of different pages there. But Dene Halatau, I think he started at lock that night, had a sensational game, and he crashed over for the second try. I think it was almost under the post.
Yeah, I think that was off a quick play, the ball, and he was quite a fair way out, maybe 15 metres out, just left of the post. And, my son and I always call that the statement try. There was no one who was going to stop him. He'd had a shoulder injury at the time, and he went and did a shoulder operation, I think, after that season. But his dummy half running was elite, and we were blessed to have him. He could play back row, he could fill in at centre, and he can play dummy half. But yeah, that was an amazing try. He ran through the meat of the St George pack and, yeah, got us out to a 2-score lead.
He almost reminds me a bit of like a Cam McInnes now, with the locks that are in vogue, where someone that's a little bit smaller but can potentially run the ball strongly, but also do a little bit of ball playing. I know he played backup 9 as well at times, didn't he?
No, he did. And look, to be fair, I don't think he ever replicated that form like that to such an elite level. He was a great player, wonderful person. But yeah, what a night and what a try.
The Dragon side itself, it was absolutely stacked, wasn't it? I can't remember it all off the top of my head, but they had Luke Bailey and Trent Barrett, and it was just Jason Riles, a lot of Origin players, and Nathan Brown, a guy who played with them, Lance Thompson. So do you think we had them rattled at 10-0 and that got to them?
We definitely had them rattled, and they had a bit of a wood on us. I know we'd beaten them earlier in the year, but they were without a lot of their Origin stars. But they had the centre combination of Cooper and Gasnier, who always, that's the New South Wales State of Origin combination. So we were up against it. I think they had Ben Hornby at fullback. You mentioned Nguama and Best on the wings. Look, they had a great forward pack and they had a lot of depth. I think they left out one of the Sims brothers that night, or he might have been on the bench or left out totally. And I remember thinking to myself, it might have been Ashton Sims, but I just remember thinking when he wasn't there, that was a good thing for us. He was one of those guys that if he was on, you couldn't handle. So,
well, Kevin Nguama, I think, played nearly 100 games for West Tigers, but Wes Nguama struck for them to make it 10 points to 4. But the try after was Chris Hyington, and that was probably for me summarise Tim Sheen's football. A couple of little tip-on passes and a forward going over.
Yeah, we always love to play a little bit in front of the line, just some passing before the line. It was quick hands. We won't mention the forward pass to tackle before that from Scott Prince to whoever it was that got tackled.
But I was going to say, lucky there was the current rule on the obstruction. Half our tries would have been pulled up.
You think so? I don't know. Like that was all before the line.
So many just bodies in motion.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't think we were running decoys so much. Like that try. I haven't watched the try. I haven't watched the game for a few years now, but I just remember it just felt like everything was before the line, and it was quite simple in the end. I think even Fatawira had a short ball in there somewhere. It might have been the last pass, but yeah, great try.
Got out to 16-6 about 50 minutes in, and then their talisman, Trent Barrett, goes in under the post. That's when I was probably most concerned in the game.
Yeah, they've always been good at that move where they run that, like that first receiver would run straight back towards the markers and they'd do the out-the-back pass to a guy running on a different angle. And they tried it earlier in the game. It didn't quite come off, but yeah, then Barrett got the ball and he's unstoppable from that position.
My favourite referee, Tim Mander, Rob. He refed us in the semi-final and the grand final, and he was notorious for that woohoo on kickoff, but he made a big call in the game, and I thought it was a turning point. It
was a massive call, and look, it's one that went our way. It was when Barrett got tackled roughly 30 metres out from his own line, and he went to play on. And I think, in current days, you just go back and you get to play the ball again. I think he got penalised, didn't he? I can't even remember at the time.
Got penalised,
He got penalised for it.
No such thing as going back
there's no
to
such.
ball.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that was a huge turning point. They had a bit of momentum. They just scored. And, yeah, I think from that moment, it just kind of steadied the ship a little bit for the boys.
Fourth try, Tim Sheen's, you could paint a picture of this. Farah to Prince to Marshall to Bengalia to Halatau. Again, just quick tip-ons. He was very big on just training and the fundamentals of passing the ball on, and they stripped him for numbers there. Yeah,
it looked so simple, didn't it? And, yeah, we stripped him for numbers. I think we had a two-man overlap by the time Halatau got the ball, and he scored a metre or two in from the sideline. Yeah, it was just a matter of once we scored there, can we hang on and see this ship home.
Last 15 minutes, there was a lot of desperate defence. St George were hammering our line. There were a couple of dropouts there. Were any concerns in that last 15 minutes?
It's the West Tigers. There's always concerns, but there was just something special about that night, Eddie. I can't explain it. I want that moment to be replicated one more time in my lifetime, hopefully in a grand final. But, look, the boys hung on and we just kept keeping them out. And there were obviously a few line dropouts at the end. I think even to the point where I might have been in the last 30 seconds of the game, Hodjo did a short dropout and regathered the ball, and then the party was on. It
was the start of a big rivalry between the two clubs. I know they got us back in 2010, and that hurt because they beat us by 1 point in the prelim, but we beat them again in week 1 in 2011. So two big fan bases. The sad thing is for both fan bases, the clubs have been dormant for the last 10 years, asleep.
Well, what was good about that win is obviously the St George fans thought it was a fluke. And luckily for us, we got to play them first match of the year in 2006, the very next year. We were the premiers. We went out there and we got them with a late try. I think it might have been a Benji pass out,
out wide.
Out wide on the left side there. I can't remember who scored it at the time. But I remember thinking, we got you again. We ain't no fluke. So no, it was good to sort of just reinforce that we are the premiers and, okay, it wasn't a one-off. We can do it again and we'll do it again if we need to.
And the 2010 result, that still hurts. I know you weren't at that game.
Yeah, it still hurts me. My son won a referee's award that night. Ironically, it was at Leichhardt Oval. It was over 70,000 people there. Look, it was one of those things I just don't think we were meant to win it. Todd Payton had gone over a tennis ball or something at training that, the late Steve Folkes had left out there. And, I think Adele's mentioned, Jeremy Smith, knees in the back on Lottie Takiri, went to the video, and as I call him, St George, Stephen Clark.
He was the worst.
He was a St George man. We never got anything.
He was
out.
Whoever was playing against us, man.
Yeah, we could have got a penalty there, and we didn't end up getting it. And then obviously St George go down the other end, and Nathan Feen, I still say to anyone that cares to listen, he threw a 20-metre pass that was on the money to Jamie Soward, who slotted a 40-metre field goal. You can't do much about that, but it was there to be won.
Steve Clark, you got me ticking on that. He was the only referee to penalise us for offside in Golden Point, Rob.
Yeah, I know.
Inside the 10. Look, I was at that game at Parramatta Stadium, and I want to get sidetracked, but he was a shock.
It's a big sidetrack, but he also pulled up a try for Canterbury at Cogra in El Masri's milestone game when he got, what's his name, Jamal Idris or something for an obstruction. There should have been a riot that night. He always gave St George's.
And last one. A big question for West Tigers fans, because this game, was it bigger than the grand final for a lot of fans? For you, was it bigger?
It was bigger for me. And look, I didn't even expect to win the grand final because we thought Parramatta were going to go out the next day and kick North Queensland ass, and they had our wood. So to me, it was, it was basically like, yes, she said, yes, she's going to marry you. And the next week, it was just like walking down the aisle like it was the wedding. Like that just felt like, you know what, this is good karma. We thrashed these guys by 50-odd points week 1 of the semis. Surely, they're not going to be able to get us this time.
Great night. West Tigers 20-12 over the Dragons in 2005.